84. I'm 7:49, but I'm gonna probably head over and catch some of the library town green stuff before mine.
And I'm going over for that.
Yeah, so we're gonna be.
All right.
Do you want me to go over?
It's up to you. I think it can be a game time thing around like 7:30. If you want to set your new town plan,
Yeah,
I'm fine to do it.
okay, great.
All right, so let's start, hi everyone, let's start with the minutes while we still have Shaven.
All right.
I updated the date from March 4th to March 18th,
Thank you.
and I liked everything else.
Just a second, and I'll share them up in a second.
They seemed brief, but everything they said was true.
Yeah. So that was my feeling.
What we strive for.
It's the date at the top, and I put a space between two paragraphs that were against each other. But I did it as commenting so that it showed it.
Did we do the Mickey appointment to the select board
It,
process, whatever that process is?
so I did email Mickey and ask him if he wanted to, so I have something in writing, so there's no turning back
Not
now.
just me twisting his arm in the meeting.
Um. So I think it probably would be good just to be able to say to the select board, if they take any kind of vote, that there was consensus of this group to agree to that. And if there is, great.
Okay, any other minutes, issues, questions? All right, all those in favor, or sorry, can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Thank you. Seconded. All right, all those in favor? All right,
You still beat my screen share. I finally got it.
we're all looking at it.
That's all right.
All right, so those pass,
Oh,
okay.
wait, except that version didn't show, you have to accept the.
I'll accept the change.
He's in the PDF.
Um,
Big chicken when she won.
actually, I'm in the Word, so I
It didn't
should.
turn out as low as it would.
Oh, okay.
They won't let me turn it off.
I'll fix it anyway.
All right.
There you go.
But thank you for letting me up.
Could you turn on closed captions? Instead, if it's on YouTube, right?
Wait on the right time, right? So I just.
You just wanna know when they start the village
Yeah,
thing.
that's all I
I
wanna
can
know.
have that one running on mine and let you know.
All right. So you're good with minutes?
Here are the minutes. All right, Heinsberg.
All right. So. I'm just gonna bring up the report.
So, sorry, I skipped ahead from meeting, location and date. What's that about? It's good to have on the agenda.
Oh, I'm
Meeting.
sorry. This is Heinsberg, so I had meeting location and date. Just wanted to give. Sorry, I keep losing my April 1 agenda page. So some of you might notice that the room we're in got smaller since the last time you were here. And some of you who were here when we did the meeting for the bike path might have noticed that it was pretty tight getting all those people in here. So we face a space challenge, and the town faces a meeting space challenge in that really we only own one room at this point that you can have a big-ish meeting in, and that's the Beckett McGuire room next door. So we've been talking a little bit with the town manager and at a staff level about considering a shift of the planning commission meeting from Tuesdays to Wednesday nights. Nothing is gonna happen fast. We wanna talk about it now and think about it over the summer. But a couple reasons to consider doing that besides just always being in a big room, meaning you're anticipating the public to show up rather than that being the exception, which kind of be nice as a public body. would also be that you would end up then not meeting at the same time as the select board and not having staff have to kind of divide their attention between the two, or yourselves or citizens who want to be at both meetings. So just want folks to think about whether Wednesday nights at 7 would work for you, whether that's a problem, whether you have any other suggestions.
And is the Wednesday night, the night, are you saying the night because that's the only night that room's open or?
Not necessarily, I find scheduling, Mondays are tough because you conflict with Monday holidays and it's the first day of the week for everybody. And Thursdays are getting awful close to the weekend. So Thursdays,
Preference.
Thursdays are probably the next,
And the DRB is on the alternate Tuesdays.
they're on the alternate
And
Tuesday.
is something on the alternate Wednesdays, energy committee?
Yeah, energy and
Yeah.
housing, on Wednesday.
I ask only because I have something the first and third Wednesday every month.
Okay,
And then during the summer, I have every Wednesday with the town band. So Wednesday evening is. I'm usually a reliable attendee. Wednesday evening would be really hard for me. But I also think that I agree with the reasons for making the change. If it were the second, fourth Wednesday or a different day, it would be much better.
okay.
The second and fourth Wednesday would be better.
Yeah, but that, although as an energy committee.
I mean, I think, yeah, there's ways of getting around
Yeah.
those meeting conflicts. They would meet earlier, maybe.
If it were the second and fourth, I would only have a problem in July and for August in total. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you think about it, we think about what Thursday looks like too. I do worry a little bit, not just joking, but like when folks want to take a Friday off and they're actually headed out of town after work on Thursday.
That's fine, I just wanted to know that.
Yeah.
And we should probably wait till we have more of us to talk about it. Because I'm also curious if 7 is work, because I don't know how that works for you guys. Like, would it be better? Yeah, bringing it earlier.
Yeah, so I think, so what we've done with Tuesdays is we run this back to back with the Historic and Design Advisory Committee, which,
DRB,
sorry,
historic's on DRB nights.
it's on
But
DRB
you just
nights.
stay late.
Sorry.
Night.
It used
Sometimes
to
we
be
just
on
do a
our-
mega night.
Right.
Didn't we used to have it back to back
Yeah,
with,
it used to be.
PC?
Yeah.
It used to be.
Yeah,
Well, we
I
It
would
used to be on Mondays.
yeah, when we first shifted from Mondays, it ended up behind PC, if I
We wound
recall.
up, maybe it's a
Right.
couple years ago, but we wound up coming in on them. a couple times, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it
remember
made sense because I was doing more DRB meetings and less planning commission when that shift made.
Yeah, so, if you don't have that conflict, I think generally. My preference on meeting start times is to start on a whole hour rather than a half hour, just for ability to remember things. And then I think a lot of our boards and committees, it's been about when can people get here after work? Like 5 is too soon for some
No, yeah,
people.
5 is too-
Some people really want that dinner hour at 6 and just push to 7. The DRB used to not start till 7:30 because I think there was one member who just could not get there until 7:30, and that is a very late start for a.
Could you maybe, but maybe the most
Sorry.
efficient way to do it, just so everybody is able to respond, is if you guys as staff. Can propose like 2 or 3
Yeah.
different options, like both days and times. And then if we just do one of your fancy polls.
Yep.
And just see what the most.
We can do that.
Whatever.
And,
Yeah.
in the meantime, anything we do that we anticipate really any public. attendance
Anyone
at all,
besides our,
Us.
I mean, at this point.
Yeah, we'll be looking for other venues. And I'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about town plan and public outreach, because April 29th, we're looking at for that at the library.
Yeah, I think I didn't link it in the agenda, but at the bottom is the memo. So for the time being. At the very
In the
bottom,
documents, yeah.
yeah. We're thinking out, so the town plan open house on April 29th and the town plan adoption hearing on May 20th will both be at Damel. We've already reserved that space. And we're just thinking out ahead through the summer. If we have any big agenda items that are gonna need space, we'll try to preemptively move those. worst case scenario, if a group of citizens come to the space, we can set up a remote Zoom in the final research area. So we can still have everybody in this building, it just might not be in one room.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we can send out that poll for a meeting time.
Great, okay, thank you, sorry, Heinsberg.
So. Heinsberg's zoning changes. I have to admit, I haven't given these a really hard look. They're shuffling around some of their rural zoning districts.
We were just a little puzzled by what it all. None of us had comments last meeting, we were just, you didn't happen to be here when we looked at it, and none of us could ascertain the import.
Yeah, so they're gonna have a residential 4 district, and then rural 2 just becomes rural. And there's no more rural 1.
Shuffling is a good word.
Yeah,
So they divided rural 1 into 3 new zoning
Yeah.
districts.
so what they're talking about, if anybody's familiar with going up the big hill out of CBU on the Richmond Road, it's dense, there's a couple of mobile home parks in that area and other sort of 60s and 70s era small lot rural subdivision, and that's quite denser and different from other stuff in the same district, and they're basically trying to get away from like a one size fits all that just either makes all that density non-conforming or allows that density across the whole district. That's where I would see that going.
But it's not abutting us, and it's not. Nothing's like.
That's clear.
No,
Us.
And I know from a transportation point of view, we tried to keep public transportation along that section because there's multiple trailer parks.
yeah. Some of the language in Act 181 about, must allow density in areas served by water and sewer. Some of the language about how you define an area served by water and sewer, and how you are allowed to have some control over that as a municipality because you have capacity challenges comes directly from Heinsberg saying, we have water and sewer going up to these mobile home parks, basically for, environmental mitigation reasons,
Right.
not because
Not
we
because
wanted a
we
bunch of
wanted to
density.
put it there, yeah.
And you can imagine the same scenario in Williston going up to Porterwood or up to Meadow Ridge, where places with failed systems were connected, therefore. The infrastructure is there in the road, but the zoning does not allow the density that the infrastructure might otherwise support. So
Interesting.
they're dealing with some of that there
Okay.
too. Yep. So yeah, I don't see anything in any of that is going to impact Williston, but it's a good example of another community just dealing with its development pattern, dealing with its infrastructure placement and trying to make it all work.
All right, anyone have more Heinsberg related questions? All righty. The memo,
So we're gonna be heading over at about 8 o'clock to talk about the town plan with the select board. And what I really want to sort of do with the planning commission before we go there is answer any questions folks have about the revisions we've made since the last time you saw this, because we didn't have time to make revisions, bring it here, have you look at it and then bring it there, that you're all kind of getting it at once. And it's a chance for me to just kind of test out my presentation on this that I'll do to walk the select board through it. So the real focus of the comments we solicited were in the objective strategies and actions, the big long table that you've all seen. We got over 400 comments on that document. We made over 600 edits, which is the result of which is what you're seeing now. Couple things that we did in that process. One was that we defined the action words in all of the actions. So there's a discrete set of action words that we're using for every single action the plan calls for. And we've defined what those actions actually mean and what it looks like to be able to say that you've actually done one of them. So that document is included in the select board's packet. It's many, many pages down, I think. I'm not sure if I can jump to it, but I can probably display it independently. Second, I'll put that up just because I think it's good to start with that. Chapter 0. There we go. So. This is our document that will live in the plan, ultimately, how to use this plan. We're talking about,
Right there's where the blue says read the green.
yeah, it should say read the blue. But I'm in the April 1 folder, so I'm not gonna edit it, because now we've made April
Yeah, no,
15 folder.
Yeah, no,
Um,
Be prepared some snide remark if somebody.
We're just trying to generate a little cognitive dissonance there.
You're trying to see if people really have read it.
Yeah,
Ah, yeah.
so, yeah, so,
I think they got that.
Oh, yeah,
From
we're-
your comments.
Fix it in the 15th.
yeah, it's already fixed.
Yeah.
Moving forward. So just so everybody sees these, evaluate, develop, implement, maintain, support, fund, and prioritize, and we don't use consider. So in each of these, we talk about what does it mean and what is the work product. So this is a really nice way to be able to acknowledge, for example, that we can't really make a budgeting decision in the comp plan. We can set a priority. So when we say fund, what we mean is get the decision about funding in front of whatever body needs to make that decision and have them do it. So if it's a bond issue, it means get it in front of the voters so they can make a decision. If it's something that the select board's gonna see, get it into a draft budget so they can go see it. And they can say yes or no to it, and that's how we will process that. So, the one that I think you'll see the most frequently is probably evaluate. And evaluate, develop, and implement are kind of in a hierarchy with each other. And evaluate really means, produce a white paper or some piece of finished product that deals with an issue, explains what the options are, and puts those options again in front of a deciding body to say, do you want to take the next step, or do you want to follow a particular course of action? So leaving that part about action words aside for a minute, in the process of going through the table, what we did was we were looking at everybody's comments. And we were looking at fixing all those verbs, and we were also looking at actions that maybe belonged in a different chapter than where they had been
Matt,
originally placed.
I'm so sorry, this can go on the parking lot, but, do we wanna have a little section somewhere that says how we're going to track this plan?
Yes, so probably it'll be a section in how to use, talk about how do we know we're making progress, and what we did. With the last town plan, particularly in the run-up to the creation and adoption of the energy plan. Was we basically went into the text of that plan and created a table like this. And created a code for what this department's responsibility was for which action and whether it was done or not. So what I would anticipate doing is closing out that chapter 0, how to use this plan, with another section that says. How do I know if we've made progress? And it would say, the planning staff will update a version of this table every year
Yeah.
and mark
Yeah,
off the things that
perfect.
are done.
Yeah, I love that.
Um,
I mean, literally, we could add a column to this.
yeah, that's the hope, is that we can continue to do
Progress or
that.
whatever.
So, you're gonna see that in all the actions now: evaluate or maintain or fund or what did I say, prioritize. The other thing is, where there were comments where either someone from a department or a select board member was saying, this feels a little too strong, this feels a little too far ahead of ourselves. The impulse for us was to back it down a level. So there might have been some things that sounded more like do this, that sound more now like evaluate this. There might have been some things that sounded like fund this, that sound like develop a plan for this. So that's my overarching message, I think, tonight to the select board is we heard you. We heard where there were some calls for moderation. We also standardized everything. We did get some comments of like, well, what does it mean to say, do this? Say, now you know, you can go use that table to figure that out. So that's there.
Can I ask a
Yes.
question? Sorry, having just arrived, jumping in with a question, but isn't what you just said kind of something we were trying to avoid before? Because of the sort of wishy-washiness of that language?
So we crossed out consider.
Okay, good,
Nothing is considered.
great,
And evaluate is not a complete work product until you've created a list of options, presented them to somebody who can decide and had them make a decision about next steps.
okay.
So,
So we're sticking to our
yeah,
effort to be more clear and
Yes.
firm and decisive.
yes,
I
But
think
backing off.
I think it's actually more clear
Okay, good.
with the words. I think that the moderation is in response to the people who said, you know, the commenters saying like, we're not there yet.
Yeah, yeah.
Basically.
Right.
I mean, I had a comment like that. I'm trying to think what it was. It was like, make a second police outpost meeting. I don't remember. One of those, and I was sort of like, I'd never heard of that before. I'm not ready to say, feel that. I'm ready to say, tell me about that.
Right.
But, you know, do we need that?
Right,
Yeah.
got it. Right, thank you.
I had a conversation with a select board member about some of that, and I said, you know, he said, the first thing the person said was, gosh, there's a lot more in here than the last town plan. And I said, yeah,
Yes,
there definitely
that was
is.
purposeful.
And that was purposeful. And there's putting everything in and then doing none of it,
Yeah.
which is something a lot of comprehensive plans do, the whole, you know, it collects dust on the shelf argument. And there's also plans and ways of doing planning that I think Williston's had a little bit of, where there's ideas that just kind of die in obscurity because they're never actually talked about. So we're trying to avoid both of those things. You know, does it mean that every single one of those actions will have a check mark next to it 8 years from now? No, probably not. That is also why we're bringing some priority to it. And so in the transmittal to the select board, we do have the top 20 and you have them both before and after we fix the verbs. That's why there's 40 there. It's, no worries. There's still only 20. If you see the numbering's consistent. And then I wanted to land on this a little bit because we did get some comments that weren't directly at the strategies and actions. And these were just two examples of ones where there's maybe a little more philosophy to debate. You know, so there's some plan text about balancing the burdens and benefits of the economy and what's the responsibility of the town towards housing for its workforce. And, you know, this came up when we did the housing needs assessment too. And you have somebody saying, you know, do we really believe that we have a responsibility to take care of the problems that Walmart creates by not paying its employees well? So I don't necessarily think that anybody has to resolve that tonight or even a month from now, but just thinking about some of that language and trying to arrive at enough consensus that something ends up in the plan that connects Williston's economy to its housing section is probably adequate here. We also had a pretty assertive statement about education and growth management, and had a comment come back that said, you know, that just looks really too strong. If we hadn't had a construction slowdown, it could have blown up the capacity of the Allenbrook School. This would be really bad. So just think about some of the tension there.
They just let a kindergarten teacher go at Allenbrook School, which would suggest otherwise.
The numbers that we are looking at do not suggest to me that growth in Williston created new kids in the school, because there are no new kids in the school numbers wise that you need to attribute to anything at all, because they're just not there.
Correct.
The enrollment is flat over the last 20 years. That said, this is like not an uncommonly held belief about the
Well, it's what we
relationship
just
between the
Keep,
two.
yeah, talking about it again, again, keeps.
I think the other thing, there were some departmental comments in the education chapter, just, we're dealing with that transition of the town and the school really being entirely separate governments. And we're dealing with a required plan element in state law that was drafted back when towns ran schools. So you gotta have an education chapter, you gotta plan for your future of your children. And now we have these two completely separate, essentially separate municipalities, performing these functions. And there's a lot, in our actions in education that are really about like talk to each other, coordinate with each other, share facilities, because we're all better off when we do. But to this comment right now, the plan really moves away from the idea of managing residential growth to try to moderate an impact on the schools. And I would argue the first reason not to do that is because it's just not a thing. It just hasn't been a thing since the mid-80s. Doesn't mean it, there might not be some massive demographic shift and new homes equals lots of new babies someday, but it's just not what's been happening in Williston over the last couple decades.
Federal funding cuts to family planning could have an impact, but not residential growth in Williston, probably.
You always like to say, is it the worst thing in the world if you need a school, build the school?
Yeah, I mean, of all the
Pretty good form of growth.
kinds of growth you could
Yeah.
have to be dealing with, of all the kinds of growth you could need to be responding to a need to expand your education system is, it is a type of growth that a lot of people, a lot of parents in growing places experience really acutely, because it means, oh, my kid was in the 1 first grade and now there's going to be 2 second grades, and or now my kid's in a bigger classroom size, or they're not going to bus to the same school like their older brother did, or you experience all those changes like really, really acutely. But that kind of growth and change is normal. One day you've got a big conference room, and the next, the assessor's office has been subdivided into it.
Is that what's going on?
Yeah, so because we've created the HR
Oh,
position,
yeah, that's what I thought it was gonna be HR.
that's gonna have a home where the assessor was in the main town hall, and the assessor's gonna come over here. So we're just making space. But I think this plan is maybe just the first step of unwinding a little bit of that town-school relationship, and more saying, we're separate entities, we share a lot of resources, we need to talk to each other. It's all the same people in the town who are also the people in the school, but less of an idea that your land use policy really has a whole lot to do with what's happening in the school, because it really hasn't for the last 20 years. And again, that may not be a belief that everybody agrees with, but
30.
yeah. There's a
The
graph.
80s were a long time ago.
There's a graph in the draft chapter. I think you've all
Yeah,
probably
we've
seen
seen
it, but so there's a little bit of just calling that out, naming that we did get some comments that weren't directly at one of the strategies or actions, and we understand that, and you understand that and have seen it, and we'll be able to move forward in our draft that way. I guess I will go to the relentless timeline we have chained ourselves to. And what I can mostly say in favor of this timeline is that it works to get a plan adopted before the other one expires, but it is rapid. Where we are tonight would be to review this update to the objective strategies and actions. Obviously not exhaustively with the select board, because we've got about 25 minutes, and I'm going to try to just say to them, we sent this to you on Friday. We've narrowed down the verbs we're using in the action items and defined them so that this is all more understandable. Generally, actions have been softened, not strengthened. A few have been added and relocated. We acknowledge there are still some other, sort of more philosophical differences that might play out in the chapter text. Please continue to give us feedback. Where we're going is this week and next week for the staff is the time to take these, back into full chapter form, or rather draft the chapters in their more final format that are going to lead into these strategies and actions. So that's where we provided the examples chapters.
Yeah, 415, chapter 1 is somewhat presentable.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that one up. Go into April.
So what's the verbs, what the verb stuff looks pretty. How do you use that?
Yeah, so I'll show you all where we're headed. So the idea is literally the next time you meet, you're gonna see 17 of these things.
Who's gonna get those done?
We are,
You're gonna stop
We don't
sleeping.
have a weekends this.
Sleep, yes, sleeping no longer.
Oh, yeah.
so this is what this starts to look like, and the general format, other than having nice pictures, is an introductory text. Want to know about goals? Blue box. Want to know about things to know about this topic? Red box. Want to know about public engagement? Green box. Then more narrative about what's going on with numbers and charts. Pretty pictures.
This is gonna get a little bit more simplification and refinement, but we're getting there.
This is one of the longer chapters too. And then what we're going to do is the end of the chapter will be the objectives and strategies and actions from that chapter. We're not going to insert that until we're really done, because there's just no sense in having it in two places and trying to coordinate. So just know that whatever's in chapter 18 for this chapter will end up inside of a gold box at the end of this chapter in the final adoption version. So the chapters will be pretty short. They're gonna have that, they're all gonna have that color code. So if you want to flip through and just read green boxes and know about public engagement, you can. And that guide, what we're calling chapter 0, how to use this plan, is gonna, as you saw, tell people about that. So we're gonna be cranking on those. We need to give you enough that on April 15th, 2 weeks from now, you can tell us to go out and warn a public hearing. And by April 18th, we need to
Notify our neighbors.
put that out on the website and tell our neighbors and tell the Agency of Commerce, Community Development and the Regional Planning Commission that it's there. And then your hearing would be May 20th. But that's not all. That's not all, because in between those things, on May 6th, we would take that published hearing draft over to the select board and say, hey, PC's got a hearing coming up in a couple weeks. We'd like you guys to schedule your informational meeting. We anticipate the planning commission handing this plan off to you on May 20th. So we're gonna ask them to do that. That's part of why we're showing this to them all along.
And then tell me the April 29th planning commission meeting.
Yeah, so that April 29th is our 5th Tuesday in the month. What we're doing that night is just a public outreach night. This is the one we're scheduling over at the library. And
6 to 8 p.m.
we're gonna state that a quorum of the planning commission might be in attendance, but there's no formal agenda for you.
Right.
It's just to do a, here it is, live in person, public presentation of the plan for anybody who wants to show up in person and talk about it. We've had drafts out on the website all along. We've been keeping people apprised of what this plan says and does all along, but I think it's so important to just have at least that one come one, come all
I love it.
evening
That's
event.
Yeah,
great.
So then the hope is that we talk, we talk with the select board on the 6th of May, we hold our public hearing and vote to transmit on the 20th of May. That would allow me to go in 2 weeks, or allow us in 2 weeks to go to the select board on June 3rd. And have the informational meeting, so no hearing, just here it is, let's talk about it. But we'd be asking the select board to agree that night to warn their hearing for July 15th. By law, the select board needs to hold 2 hearings. They only meet once in August. So the second hearing would be August 19th. Current plan expires on the
And
25th.
is that on Eric's radar?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so they got this is the memo they got, and this is a version of a schedule we've been communicating with Eric for some time. So, like I said, the nicest thing I can say about this schedule is it is a schedule that takes us, to the point of adoption. Prior to the expiration of the current plan, but it's brutal on us, this week and next in terms of banging out chapter text and all of that. The other thing I will say is there's lots of room for adjusting things and refining things in this. So what you warn for a public hearing is not what you have to vote to transmit to the select board. You can hold that hearing and then you can direct us to make changes. It's very likely that we're gonna catch things we wanna change, and we'll show up at the public hearing and say, here's a red line of what you warned 30 days ago. We're recommending you immediately add these changes to your transmittal because we found things that, we got wrong or we need to fix. So there, it will evolve from what gets warned to what you send to the select board. And there's a statutory procedure if the select board wants to make changes. We'll see how much of that plays out, but at that point, they're in control of the timeline.
Can I ask, this is like an enormous amount of changes, like you have all incorporated so much, like. Bringing in all of that feedback into all of these changes. I'm wondering, is there a red line, an actual redlined version from the last version to this version? I know that there is.
Yes.
That would be amazing to see. I know that like making all the changes is one thing, and then being able to see the changes can also be like a whole other.
yeah.
Like communicating about the process can also be like extremely difficult, but in the PDF, it's like I didn't like seeing the like this left and this entered and this left, like I saw places where it's like
Yeah.
there's text and this box is yellow, but like a specific like, hey, we actually changed all of these to develop or evaluate, like whatever the red line version is, especially as we get into the tweaks that the select board wants to make, to be able to say, like, this is what it was last time you saw it, and this is what it is now, just because it is like, even the table is nearly 100 pages, to be able to be like, and this change, and this change, and this change, instead of reading all 100 pages again to wonder what it is. So I think that's something that could be like so helpful, just to be like, indeed, so much work happened from the last time that you saw it.
Mhm.
And this is everything. And it's probably not like, it's not like a good usable thing for someone reading it the first time, reading the red line.
So-
But like,
Here's what that starts to look like.
amazing. Wow.
This exists.
Uh-huh.
This also still has all the comments and we responded to comments once we made an edit.
This was the thing we shared.
This is what
Commented
I got.
This is what you
No,
all,
this is what we commented in originally.
yeah, so
Like,
I haven't,
even forgot.
So
Yeah.
the select board did get a version of that, right? With all the comments, or just,
I don't-
did they just get a red line?
I think they just got a clean one.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So I'll have that up to show them
Yeah,
if they want to look at it, but, and we can make that available for anybody. We can just share it out of the SharePoint.
That
And,
would
you
be
know-
awesome, just to convey like this thing has evolved and like the sheer amount of effort, like.
Yeah.
We took all the feedback, I mean, y'all took all the feedback in and like really like heard it and incorporated it.
Yeah, definitely.
Does it count for you? You don't count 600, right?
No, it counts for you. I never would have come up with the number by myself. And there's also clearly a font that's not installed in my Adobe. That's
Yeah,
a
that's what I
chapter
find
title.
too.
Just swear. I saw that, yeah.
That was the Aptos.
Aptos didn't work.
Aptos.
It's like a standard font in
Yeah,
Outlook.
that is a
Why?
very standard font.
Uh,
It is now, but if you're using a really old version,
I have no idea. Yeah,
it doesn't know about Aptos.
I mean,
I had that happen to me.
I supposedly own latest and greatest Adobe, but every time it's gotten better, it's gotten worse to use, so,
Yes.
yeah, I'm firmly at the age of being grumpy about software.
So I have one more path question, Matt.
Mhm.
Don't coming. Did that beefed up, 10.3 end up in the top 20?
I think so. But let me.
10-3, you mean the
The
path?
path,
I believe so,
yeah,
because I basically took everything that you prioritized. and put it in the top 20.
This is why it's good to be.
Yeah.
Question, right? Okay.
Feel the power, sure.
yeah, I was just gonna try and get back and,
Didn't see it, but I could also just see. I didn't see it the first time either, so. Not a reliable reader, clearly.
The bicycle and pedestrian plan and evaluate waste fund build out with needed bicycle and pedestrian.
It didn't make it in there?
See,
Uh-oh.
well, we can pull that
I'm in
over.
trouble.
You're not in trouble.
That's why we're doing comments.
That's why we're editing it.
Yes, because it's in chronological order, so,
Yeah,
I don't see it.
I'd love to add that back in.
Yeah. And then we should, yeah, we'll add that and drop something.
yeah,
Well, I mean, I think
wasn't in the older, yeah, it's not in the older language either, okay.
I just I think maybe in leave 10.1 in here
Mhm.
and then replace 10.4 with the 10.3.
Yes,
10.4 is pretty obvious.
Because 10.4 is the second step to 10.1. So,
yeah, we can do that,
no, I'd like to do that because I think 10.3 is just very concrete, literally.
or asphalt, yes.
I did get into a debate about that with a 7-year-old the other day. Asphalt versus concrete. Oh my God.
So I thought you were gonna say a debate with a bike ped advocate, but
No,
Maybe.
so just a 7-year-old. So, you know. Okay, that was my only top priority thing that I noticed otherwise.
Oh, in my version, 10.3 is thing that was marked as 10.4 in there. Huh?
oh.
It says explore ways to adequately fund the more rapid build out of needed bicycle and pedestrian facilities. But that's not what you were referring to, was it? Sure.
You're referring to the actual build the
The
path.
actual build path.
action.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We need to name it, Megan. What is it called?
Get it done.
Temporary name.
That's what it's
It
called.
needs a temp name.
See if I can get there without making a soul.
Yeah.
10.3,
3, advance the Williston Road multimodal path.
The Williston Road was
yes.
I think,
Yeah.
WRMP.
That's probably what it was, because I'm looking at the old version and it was
Okay,
the language.
perfect. Yeah,
that was
that's the
up
one I
there.
want.
yeah, so that's the way it looks up to the minute, but we just wanna pull that over to
Pull
the
that
top
into the
20.
top one, right?
Great. Other things that are likely to evolve a little bit, actually, I had a talk with our town manager this morning about a couple more public safety related actions. They're mostly related to regional coordination around dispatch, and actually a little bit of discussion about that substation one that you brought up, Shayla, which is that the Baker report that the police had done did identify that
As
and as a like, go, you should go
You
do
should go do
this. And it may also tie into the way we provide social services and some of the reformulation of the way community justice centers work going forward. So the idea of putting some community justice functions into a Taft Corners location, which is also then accessible to transit and nearer to where a lot of the community justice routed incidents originate.
Yeah, no, I'm not,
So
I
I'll
wanna be
probably
really
write
clear,
it.
I'm not opposed to it at all. It was
No,
just
it's a
like,
good
it, like,
example.
Showed up in the report, in the objectives, and I was like. Hi. Hi, new idea.
So I think one action coming out of this meeting for the planning commission is we will share that red line so you can all just see it. And also, I think we can share you the April 15th clean version to provide comment on. So
Yeah,
you can
that'd be
try to
great.
catch any more refinements.
That'd be great.
So it's hopefully just because we've, you know, sometimes there was just a lot of weird grammatical stuff we had to do to start the action with a verb.
Yeah.
But just so you can kind of track through all of that and give some more suggestions to what shows up or what gets moved forward to the select board following your public hearing.
Great.
So. Other thing in this memo is just, there was a little more schedule stuff about public outreach, so we have that. Ask these again. Timeline. Second timeline. Couple other things, we'll do a table for the town plan at Green Up Day. We are talking to the Rotary Club about being a Rotary Club speaker to talk about the town plan. I did that early on when we launched public engagement, so it'd be nice to circle back. We're gonna show up at one of the senior community meals down at the rec zone on Harvest Lane and talk to people there about the town plan. We're going to go to the library trustees to talk about the town plan. So any other groups that would like a visit from a planning staff member to sort of do our roadshow and just answer questions, we're happy to go out and do that. We'd love to just talk to more people about this and hopefully get some supporters who are there to say, yeah, you know, the staff worked really hard to make me aware of this. And we're trying to inoculate ourselves against that one person who always shows up at the very end of a process and says, I had no idea any of this was going on.
This is the first I've heard of this.
And you got it all wrong.
Right.
I don't agree with it. So, and also just because it's good to talk to lots of different people, so. If you have a group that's meeting, anybody you're involved with that we should go, talk to, we're happy to see if we can set that up.
Great.
Yeah,
Are there neighborhood organizations that might be useful?
maybe. There's a couple of bigger homeowners associations.
Right.
Most of them in Williston meet so infrequently. It's a little tough to do. It's not something we explored in Williston, but the idea of like having some neighborhood councils in a town of this size at some point. I mean, to my knowledge, South Burlington doesn't do that either, and they're twice as big as we are, but you know, you think of sort of some of the somewhat discrete parts of town, and how there might be an ability to do that. Might be able to catch something at Williston Woods, actually.
Yes.
They have a meeting area and use it pretty regularly, so.
I think I was specifically thinking about, maybe some of the, apartment residents in more Infinity Crossing, who who may not be as connected to some of these things because they're generally renters, for
Mhm.
instance. May also be a younger population or kind of more mixed
We should,
economically.
we can reach back out to the folks we talked to
You
when
did?
we did engagement
Yeah.
there.
Right.
So doing
And that was a
another night
big
there.
group, right?
It was
That
a
was
big group.
packed.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
had
a
the,
good idea, really.
had the
We
widest
appreciate that.
age span of any group because we had a baby there.
Oh, that's great.
You know, senior
Yeah, I'm just
citizens.
thinking like senior community, Wilson Woods, even though, it's kind of a older demographic, which fair enough, makes up a lot of the town, but if there's a way to make things a little bit more kind of economically and age.
Well, that's probably good.
Yeah, I mean, it's
It's
been
been
over
over
a
a
year.
year.
It was a year ago fall.
So that'd be a nice little, like,
Mhm.
circle back to that. Should we?
Yeah, I
Adjourn?
think we can probably, do we have anything else?
I don't think so,
I don't think we did.
even though I skipped something earlier.
Yeah,
No, we're good.
all right. So, yeah, just, like I said, what we're doing is we're moving forward. So we worked in a folder called April 1, and now we're working in a folder called April 15th. We're gonna keep that project timeline and list of engagement activities, going and updated and out there. And if we can just make it through April 15th. At the staff level, this gets a little less.
Yeah.
relentless,
It's brutal
but
between the
this week and
the
next week is
2
just,
weeks,
gonna be tough. But it'll encourage us to continue to write very short, complete chapters and to edit mercilessly. There's that,
Short is not always easier.
there's an AI plugin called Hemingway. It just
Maybe I should use that.
just run them through Hemingway. No, but I will,
No adjectives.
yeah, no adjective, nothing is very anything,
Right.
It's either important or not important, it's never critically important,
Right.
you know. No, we'll get there, but yeah, we can, if you guys want to adjourn, we can.
Yeah, let's adjourn.
close it.
Move over to